Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the LMTI Spotlight series. We are here for episode number 3. Our presentation today is called Building Youth Leaders. My name is Corey. I am a training coordinator here for LMTI. Today's presentation is presented by the Lindsay Meyer Teen Institute, which is a program of Partners in Prevention. So a little bit about today's presentation. It's kind of just an intro in a way to youth leadership, just talking about some of the foundations, almost the building blocks in a way, and how we go about helping build and helping our youth leaders grow. So a little bit about LMTI. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, we are a nonprofit. We are associated with our parent agency, which is Partners in Prevention, based out of Hudson County, but LMTI is statewide. We are most known for our Summer Leadership Conference, which we hold every year at the end of August, usually, where we, gather a bunch of kids from all around the state to come together, and, they go through workshops. We have guest speakers, and, honestly, I don't want to spend too much time going about this because there's so much information about it. So what I would suggest is for this and for other information about what we do offer, head to our website, njlmti.org. We also do custom trainings and workshops. So we, do work with middle schools and high schools, but also community groups, again, across the state. And we do regional statewide summits or leadership conferences in addition to that. So for more information about that, head to our website, njlmti.org. So just a little bit about me, so you can put a face to the voice. Again, my name is Corey. I am the training coordinator here for LMTI. I've been working with youth in some capacity for over 10 years now. I attended Rider University and Montclair State University for my bachelor's in communications and a master's in counseling. And just a few of my favorites: baseball, fantasy football. I like fantasy football more than the real football. And my favorite TV show is Everybody Loves Raymond. And favorite movie would have to be The Shawshank Redemption. So the bottom picture here is a bunch of our staff at camp, all smiles, as always when we're at camp. So just a few goals for this session that I would really hope for everybody who watches to take away, to really have a better understanding of what it means to be a leader. I think sometimes the word leader and leadership kind of gets thrown around. So hopefully we can just put kind of a definition and just have a better understanding of that overall. I would like to have you guys learn how to guide youth to realize their leadership potential, to create positive changes in their school and community, because ultimately what it comes down to is what they will be able to do and how you'll be there to guide them across the way, but recognizing that, they're the ones who are going to be on the front lines, and that for a change to happen, they're going to have to put the work in and be there. And also, we are going to talk about the 40 developmental assets from the Search Institute. So we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly, but I look at those as kind of almost like building blocks to understanding how leaders come to be and why some leaders have a bit of a head start based on things that, some things that they can't control, some things that they can, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So to get things started, I posed the question, what is a leader? I'll give you guys like 5 seconds just to come up with your own answer, just to kind of think, and then I'll share with you our LMTI definition. So what we use to describe as a leader here at LMTI is a person who uses skills to help a group identify and achieve its goals. So one thing I want to highlight here is that there are many different types of leaders. Leaders come in all different shapes, different sizes, have different skill sets. There's really not a prototypical form or formation that would be a leader per se. So I know there's a lot of words here. I'm going to kind of read it broken up a little bit, but we like to think of leadership skills kind of like a toolbox. So sometimes you can use different tools to accomplish the same task. You might use a hammer to hit a nail in. Me, I might not have a hammer nearby. I might take off my sneaker or what have you and nail it in, and the job still gets done. Yours might be a little bit more efficiently done, But at the end of the day, we're both hammering that nail in and getting that job done. So as leaders, we all have different schools or different tools and skills at our disposal. And we learn how to use those tools and skills along the way in our own way. So one kind of cliche in a way statement, but I've heard it a few times across my life, and it's just something that I always think back to is, 2 + 2 we know equals 4, but at the same time, so does 3 + 1. Just like a really easy, simple way to show how we can get the same answer by doing different works or taking a different path, however you want to word that. So leadership can be learned. I know we have all these talks, especially me, I'm a big sports guy, about how leaders are born and this and that, but we really want to stay away from words and phrases like natural leader, natural born leader, it comes effortlessly, it comes gifted. That's not to say that certain people, it doesn't come more naturally to them, because everybody's going to have certain skills and they might have a better skill set doing one thing better than somebody else. But that does not mean that somebody cannot learn or enhance their leadership skills. So really, we want to get rid of those words when we're just talking about leaders, especially with youth, because youth have so much time to grow and become who they are, across their adolescence and, even beyond that, into becoming the leaders that they want to be. So yeah, phrases can make people feel like it's something that they might not be able to achieve. So for someone who's 13 to hear that, they're not a good leader, that could be a really negative for them. And, it might make them think like, well, I was not born a leader, so why should I even bother doing this or doing that? So we really try to, reframe that as that, these skills can be attained and they can always be enhanced. So moving on to the 40 developmental assets, which I mentioned before. So these are from the Search Institute. They will be listed in our references at the end here, and also the references will be sent out in the email that you got with this webinar. If you need any of the documents, just feel free to shoot me an email. It will be listed at the end of this webinar. So the developmental assets are 40 common sense, positive experiences and qualities that help influence choices young people make and help them become caring, responsible, and successful adults. So we're going to get into the 40 assets more directly, but these next few slides are just kind of background information about the information from the Search Institute. So research. So young people with more of the developmental assets are more likely to make choices that we value, less likely to get in trouble, more likely to bounce back when life gets hard, and a sense of resiliency. So in short, the more assets that you have, for most people, the bridge to being a positive leader or having more natural positivity come their way is kind of how that goes. It's kind of like a two-way street in a way. And again, that's not to say that somebody with less developmental assets is going to be a worse leader than somebody else. It's just a matter of how their paths are different. So it's built upon a framework of 8 categories, 40 assets, broken up into external and internal factors. And they're really small things that anybody can do or anybody can have. It's based on 3 types of applied research: positive youth development, prevention, and resiliency. So kind of goes back to the last slide, matching up with how the assets affect youth. So the categories, the 4 external categories are support, empowerment, boundaries and expectations, constructive use of time. And the 4 internal categories are commitment to learning, positive values, social competencies, and positive identity. So over the next few slides, we'll, next several slides or so, we'll kind of get into each of these categories and show you how each category has a certain amount of assets that go along with it. So the first one is support. So the 6 assets that would fall under support are family support. So, having that support from, it could be parents, could be grandparents, relatives, that close family circle support around you. positive family communication, other adult relationships, caring neighborhood, caring school climate, your parent involvement in schooling. So this is really important for youth because this is kind of their, main support system outside of their friends group or their peers. This is really that kind of adult guidance and that kind of safety net that they have at home. So this is kind of, in a way for them, one that they not necessarily can control, because if they don't have positive family support, of course there's things that they can do that might affect that in one way or another. But a large part of that really depends who their family is and how their family communicates. So it's partly things that they control, but there's also part of that in which they can't. Empowerment. So that's community values youth. They use youth as a resource, service to others, and safety. So, a youth can be great leaders and have great skills. Having that sense of empowerment and people behind them in their community, ensuring that they're safe, uplifting them, is all about the empowerment factor here. Boundaries and expectations. So boundaries and expectations is kind of a tricky one because we always talk about there being a fine line in whatever situation you're talking about. So it's kind of family boundaries, school boundaries, neighborhood boundaries. They're adult role models, positive peer influence, and high expectations. So, it's just a matter of finding themselves kind of in the area where it's not on one side versus the other side. So they're kind of staying in line with, their values and, what their family and school are asking. But at the same time, having that influence from their peers and the adults as well, just kind of keeping them on a balance in a way. All right, and the next set is constructive use of time. So this has to do with creative activities, youth programs, time between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, whatever the timing is. Outside of that time frame, and even, certain times within the school day where they're not necessarily regimented, what are they doing with that time? So there's creative activities, can be extracurricular activities, sports, music, art, whatever their interest is. Also, whatever is available. What's available in certain schools or communities might not be available in other schools and communities. And the same thing can go for youth programs and religious communities as well. And also how they're spending their time at home. When they get home, are they doing X, Y, and Z, or are they using their time constructively to help aid them in whatever they're trying to achieve? It comes down to, are they going to put in the certain amount of time to accomplish what they want to? So commitment to learning kind of spins off of the last slide a little bit, but how committed are they to learning and furthering education? So this is to do with school engagement, homework, achievement and motivation, they're bonding to school, reading for pleasure. So again, some of this is definitely part of their control and how they go throughout their day and what they do. But again, some of it and some of the factors are outside of their control in terms of how engaged they are with certain things at school, the subjects that are available, their relationship with teachers, and homework. Are they doing their homework? Are they getting enough homework? Are they getting too much homework? So a lot of those factors really directly connect to the school environment. So yeah, those are the factors for a commitment to learning. So next we have positive values. So caring, equality and social justice, integrity, honesty, responsibility, and restraint. So I like to, on this list, I really like to focus in on integrity and kind of honesty and responsibility. It's all about kind of keeping true to themselves and keeping up these positive values and kind of keeping that sense of self. So caring can be seen and done in many, many ways. It's all about, again, just kind of staying true to yourself, being themselves in their role, being responsible, being honest, but at the same time showing that restraint. And again, you'll see a bunch of these kind of coincide with values and assets that we already spoke about. but kind of like almost in a way relating to the boundaries of finding that happy medium of how to stay balance their integrity, honesty, and responsibility while also keeping that restraint in their role. Right, on to the next set. So social competency. So these are planning and decision-making, interpersonal competence, cultural competence, resistance skills, peaceful conflict resolution. So, you know, kind of a large scope of things here. Peaceful conflict resolution, I'm going to focus on right here. You know, that's really a big one because as a leader, in pretty much any leadership role, you're going to experience some type of conflict, whether it be small, whether it be big, whether it be medium-sized. Being able to handle those situations and not necessarily a right and wrong decision, but being able to approach those situations in kind of like a mild manner sense and, you know, using the proper methods of thinking and making sure that everybody's heard and moving towards that positive resolution, or as positive as it can be of a positive resolution, is super important. And I think the factors above here, resistance skills, cultural competence, interpersonal competence, planning and decision-making, kind of all lead up to how you would resolve a conflict peacefully. So all of these are equally as important, because I think without the interpersonal competence, you probably aren't going to have as easy as a time, you know, resolving a conflict. And likewise for cultural competence, resistance skills, and, you know, so they all kind of intertwine together, as you see. And I believe we have one more set for the 8 categories, which is positive identity, you know, self-esteem, that personal power and sense of purpose, positive view of their personal future, which is not easy for a lot of youth, you know, the positive view of personal future and, you know, self-esteem. A lot of kids may struggle with their self-esteem and kind of still trying to figure out their sense of purpose, which is okay. They're, you know, still learning about themselves and what they want to accomplish in life and how they want to accomplish it. So some of these identities, they might not have their freshman, their sophomore year, you know, but as they grow into maybe their junior year, it's things that they can acquire. And that's all of these assets and all of these categories. Is just because you don't have one of them today doesn't mean tomorrow you won't. It's not kind of a finite list that you look at it once, you either have it, you don't, and that you're set for life. It's, you know, at different points of your life, you're going to feel differently about certain aspects. You know, I definitely would recommend as adults checking in with this. Again, the list of the assets will be attached to the email. If you need it, I will send you the link from the Search Institute to get the assets. You know, and it's funny because, you know, we do these trainings and, you know, we talk about the developmental assets, and each time I kind of fill out the sheet or look at the assets, I'm kind of, you know, I wonder if I answered this last time, or, you know, you never kind of, you never know in that moment exactly how it will compare to the last time or the next time you take it. So it's really interesting to kind of look at the growth and how you look at the different assets as you grow. So I would like you to take a second, if you have the list in front of you, or if you want to pause and rewind a little bit, or if you remembered some of the assets, just take a second to think what you believe your strongest asset is, and then what's an asset that you want to work on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an asset that you view as weak. It could be a strong asset that you want to build stronger. You know, just one that you really think you want to work on. For me, I believe my strongest asset is family support. Luckily, I believe I have a strong support system around me that truly believes in me and wants to see me grow and accomplish the goals that I set for myself. And one asset that I really want to work on is kind of the whole category of constructive use of time. I think time management is something that I struggle with. I'm a bit of a procrastinator. You know, my time at home, I really, really, really wish that I can use more effectively and efficiently. So that's really the main one I want to work on. So, you know, I would just ask you to just take a second and think about, you know, your strongest one, and then one that you would want to work on. So, just a little recap on the developmental assets. They're, a solid foundation, and it just helps you to understand youth a little bit better, and just to understand the factors a little bit better that go into, the person that they are, and, the person that they're growing to be. Next, we are going to shift gears. I have another small kind of thinking activity. If you have a pen and paper, if you want to pause and grab a pen and paper, however you feel more comfortable, just kind of shifting gears here into a little bit more leaders and leadership specific. So I want you to think about your favorite teacher or anybody you consider to be a great youth leader. It could be a coach, it could be someone from your church, someone from, a music group, just any youth leader that you consider to be a great leader. And once you have that person in your mind, usually it's a teacher. For most kids, when we do this, when I would ask them, but if it's not a teacher, whoever it may be, how did you know that they were a good leader? So I would like you to just take a second again and think, what made them a great leader? And more specifically, what did they do and what did they say? So if you can just think back to, even if it's just one moment, or if it's a list of 10, 20, however many moments of an instant of something they did and something they said that just made you know or made you realize that they were a great leader. Or when you think about them now, or when you explain to somebody about your experience with them, what did they do and what did they say? Obviously, I can't hear your responses over a webinar, but what I would ask is just to kind of be as specific as possible in differentiating the say and the do. That's kind of how the rest of this presentation is going to be focused, is kind of on what can you do, what can you say in terms of acting as a leader or working with youth. And, I say that because it's important to be able to recognize how they were able to display the skills to be a great leader, because you're all leaders in the role that you're serving, and the youth leaders are leaders in their own way with their own skill set. So being able to see the different range of what somebody can do or what somebody can say that makes them an effective leader, I feel is really important, especially when talking and working with youth. So some leadership skills that we're going to focus on for this presentation are highlighting strengths, accountability, having a collaborative work approach, being able to think forward, active listening skills, advocating and empowering others. And there's many, many, many more leadership skills. The list is kind of infinite. You can have as many as you really can think of. There's really no kind of cut and dry list. So that's why these are the ones that I'm focusing on, but there's plenty more that, plenty more skills that make a leader who they are. So highlighting strengths. So what to say when highlighting strengths? Try to keep things positive. Encourage a student when they show growth. So I'm not saying you need to shower them with gifts and praise every time they do something good or something positive, but we really want to make sure that they are being recognized when they show growth. And for some students, some kids, it might not be a big deal for them, but for others, it can be the difference of them continuing to grow versus losing interest in what they're doing. So I would say never be afraid of encouraging somebody when they show growth or when they do something positive or something helpful for them in their community and school. So what to do? So one kind of tangible example that I would have is kind of, again, all leaders are different. So if you have 12 students in a group, and you would try to avoid keeping all the groups focused with the same skill set. If you have 3 students in your 12 that are all excelling at public speaking, you probably wouldn't want to have all 3 in one group. Spreading them around would kind of help them learn from others and help others learn from them. So it's just a way of kind of equally distributing strengths in your group. And the same would go for writing skills, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a way of kind of keeping that spread across the way. So accountability. One thing that I found success with is kind of like asking a what if scenario is a good way to instill accountability. So, if the student has a job A, what if job A doesn't get done? And kind of like the trickle down effect of how that leads to more things not getting done and et cetera, just to show them that what they're doing has a meaning and a purpose. And something that we can do as adults or as a youth leader, hold yourself accountable. It's hard for somebody to ask others to get things done if they're not showing that they're going to be getting those things done as well. I have modeling highlighted here. Kind of like they're going to kind of mirror the behavior they see from you. So if they see that you're kind of nonchalant and not taking things seriously, odds are they're probably going to be the same way with the work that they're doing. So working collaboratively, I know this one's kind of tricky because a lot of, not even just youth, a lot of people in general kind of dread whenever they have a group project. And the truth is you really do have group projects throughout your whole life. Really in almost any line of work, you're going to be working with others and having to use a collaborative approach. So some things to say is, let them know you're available. Whether you're meeting with them in person or virtually. I have almost like setting up office hours in a way is good because, we don't want you to have a revolving door 24/7. So kind of having that structured time frame for them to reach you, and also letting them know the best way to get a hold of you kind of helps you help them and keeps everything kind of organized. And one thing to do, provide support. If you see that something is not getting done, I would not recommend kind of why aren't you doing this? Why isn't this getting done? But on the flip side, offer that support, offer that help, ask what you can do to help them get the job done, either more efficiently or, in a manner that helps them get the task done without them kind of feeling belittled in a way, because maybe they didn't get something along the way, maybe they're not understanding. So just give them that opportunity to kind of get the task done with your help, and take that from there. Next skill we have is forward thinking. So kind of encourage those who you're working with to consider the impact their work will have on the next group of students that come through the school or, and through the community. It's kind of cool for them to see how what they're doing today can still be effective and still be useful for years to come. And it kind of relates to what I have here for what to do is, if you have a personal experience of something that you've done or a previous group that's done something that kind of had that trickle down effect of lasting change, show them, use your resources. If you have somebody from outside of where you are that can come in and speak to them, or, even if it's virtually, do that. Use your resources as best as you can and as they're available to you. But yeah, showing them examples of how impactful their work can potentially be can definitely work wonders. Active listening. So this is an important one. Youth really strive to be heard. And I think in certain regards, they feel like they're not being heard. So certain things, you can do or reflect what you've heard or paraphrase. I would say don't be afraid to ask questions, especially if you're not understanding something. Make sure you're just, what they're saying and where they're coming from, and, and let them know that they are being heard. And that comes from, respecting what they're saying and being genuine. And if you do happen to go in another direction than they suggest or that they're hoping for, or if you disagree with what they're saying, is, just make sure that you're hearing what they're saying and explain your side of things and why you're doing something or why you feel a way to them, as opposed to just shooting them down or saying no. Giving that reasoning really kind of helps them understand where you're coming from and that you're doing it for a reason that, they may not understand at the time, but at least you're taking the time and the effort to explain your reasoning. So advocacy, our last skill that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to look on the left side here. So youth voice is underrepresented, kind of as I said a few moments ago, is that they really feel like sometimes they're getting overshadowed and what they're saying is just kind of being shot down, which is, you know, not ideal, especially when you consider almost a quarter of the country are under 18. So again, I know that doesn't mean we're working with a quarter of the population, because we're not working with infants or, you know, probably not elementary school level, but, you know, just to kind of put that idea into your head that under 18 is really a quarter of the population. And I feel like it's important to recognize that a 16-year-old today is facing way different issues than when I was 16, when you were 16, etc. So just being able to understand that and be empathetic about that, and realize that what might not have been important to you could be very important to them, and vice versa. So just being able to kind of understand where they're coming from. And ultimately it comes down to, you can help them make a difference. And if you're watching this webinar, odds are you are in a position that you really do want to help them make a difference. So in terms of advocacy, what you can say is, you know, motivate them to make change. Let them know you're there to support them. And that coincides with being present, being active, being genuine, and being yourself, and kind of helping to mobilize their efforts. So kind of like helping orchestrate what they want to do, knowing that they're the ones on the front lines, but making sure that they know that you're there to support them along the way if they have questions, if they need help, and just advocating for them as a group, as individuals, is huge. And so, you know, I say all this and went all over all that information, really just to say and to summarize is, you know, it's not easy working with youth leaders and helping build youth leaders, but I promise you, and, you know, most of you probably know by now, and if not, I hope that you have that realization soon, that the work you're doing with these youth leaders and helping them grow truly is a rewarding process, not only for them, but for us as adults working with the youth. Seeing them grow truly is a rewarding experience. And, you know, again, it's definitely not easy. There's certain hiccups that happen along the way. I think it's really important to remember, you chose this line of work for a reason, you're doing this for a reason, and most likely you're doing a great job. And, you know, the one thing I'll leave you with is that just being there is kind of half the job. Just kind of showing up and being present and being yourself is going to matter so much for youth as they grow. Having you there for them to kind of lean on, and, you know, just respecting them will gain the respect of them. And, you know, I can't stress enough how important it is to be genuine when working with youth. So here's a list of resources, kind of wraps up today's presentation. I truly appreciate you for taking the time to watch this. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, looking for more information, feel free to shoot me an email, cdonetz@pipnj.org. You know, you can reach us on our website, njlmti.org, and I'll also have our social medias here as well. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Take care.